moons, at the time of this recording, it is way before Hoshi's birthday. But this would have been Hoshi's 18th birthday, which I understand there are a few dogs that make it to 18, but most do not. And if you're new to my show, Hoshi was my 16-year-old Pomeranian. He was my sidekick and pretty much has my entire heart. Okay, I never had kids, never wanted kids, but Hoshi was my fur kid, and I will love him forever. I have started honoring Hoshi with episodes centered around teaching things that are centered around kind of Hoshi's personality. He had a big personality. So I started off this season talking to you about manifesting like a Pomeranian that has all the audacity. And so I'm not sure yet what I want to do to celebrate Hoshi's birthday, but his birthday was July the 1st. So I always say that if you can, if you want to honor Hoshi, do something nice for the animals in your life, do something nice for yourself, and have all the audacity of a Pomeranian that knew how loved he was and is. And I just want to say happy birthday to my fur kid. I love you forever, Hoshi. And I don't want to cry, so I'm just going to leave it right there and say I miss you. And I wish you were here to see all the success that Mom was having. But I know you're here in spirit, but I mean physically, just so I could hold you one more time. All right, new moons. Let's get into today's episode. Bonjour, new moons. I am Josie the Mustang, the Afro-Latina goddess of witches, and you are aligned with the frequency of the Lua Nova podcast. And this is part 2 of our conversation about self-concept. I'm going to be giving you a 4-step process about how to change your self-concept. Keep in mind that episode 1 and episode 2, that these are just a basic overview. I definitely think that when it comes to self-concept, that just like your nervous system regulation and just like healing, it's a process that you're going to keep doing over and over and over. And so I always advise my listeners to do your research, not just Lua Nova. Although I love that I'm a big part of your day-to-day, I want to make sure that when it comes to teaching about manifestation, that I'm clear and that I am one teacher, and that I will oftentimes give you the overview of how to do things and how to apply certain manifestation concepts to your life. Okay. But I want you to continue to do research. I want you to listen to the Neville Goddards and the Abraham Hicks. I want you to find other manifestation teachers, especially people of color, especially Afro-Latinos, that teach from the perspective of our culture, that teach from the perspective of lived experience, okay, and not from a privileged experience, okay, because oftentimes when it comes to manifestation, something that I notice a pattern of is that oftentimes people who call themselves manifestation coaches, they have never survived anything real in their life. And what I mean by that is no real traumas, no real difficulties. And so when it comes to manifesting, they're looking at it from a point of privilege. They're not looking at it from a point of actually having to heal, of actually having to regulate your nervous system. And so it's why you'll notice I don't recommend a ton of people. I'm very careful because in all categories, whether it's music or any other form of media, you will notice a particular narrative constantly being pushed. And it's why I fight so hard to be the opposite of that. And in fact, I don't even have to fight to be the opposite of that. I just am. And so I hope that my show has given you a perspective that makes you think, but also makes you want to continue to learn. Okay, because that's what we're here for. We're here to learn. And so this will be a 4-step process. I recommend that you take notes, pull out the notebook, physical notebook, pull out laptops, iPads, all that. If I were you, if I was going to really try to apply this process to my everyday life, okay? And in the meantime, what I'm going to be doing from now on, in fact, let me pull up all the information that I need, is I'm going to be going over all of the stuff that I go over at the end of the show. I think we need to move that to the beginning of the show. Not because of any other particular reason other than that I think it makes more sense at the beginning of my show and not the end. So starting off with, for those of you who have questions, those of you who like to send in questions to me, those of you who want to learn more about me and the Lua Nova brand, I recommend going to the official the official website for Lua Nova, which is luanovapodcast.net. Now, always know this. In the show notes, you can find every link that I'm about to go over. It's right there for you, whether you're watching this on YouTube. And when I say watching, I mean that the audio is, I think a portion of my podcast is put on YouTube automatically in audio format still. Or if you are listening to me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, which is, typically where most of you listen to me at, you'll see right there in the show notes how to get in contact with me and how to find more information. If you are also an Aphrodite devotee like me, then I recommend the audiobook album that I created for you, where it is for devotees. It has an Aphrodite daily prayer. It has channeled messages from Aphrodite, which is something that I have had right here on the show for you. And you can find that information by going to goddessoflove.net. You can purchase the ebook there, or you can just access the audiobook album. Keep in mind, you don't have to have a paid Spotify, Pandora, Apple Music you do have to pay for, but most of these accounts that I mentioned that have my works on them, you don't actually have to pay for anything. You can have the free version if you want to. I just want everybody to listen, to be honest. And yes, you can find my music such as Ethereal Pop Alchemist and all of my other music by now, Summer Solstice, by going to Apple Music, Spotify, Pandora, YouTube. You name all the major platforms and my albums are on there. Okay. If you want to support Lua Nova, as many of you do, I really appreciate this. You can go to buymeacoffee.com/Lua Nova podcast. If you want to buy things from my wish list, you absolutely don't have to, but I appreciate those of you who have. Go to throne.com. Yes, like a throne that a queen sits on, Queen of Wands, Queen of Cups, etc. Go to throne.com/Josie the Mustang. The Cash App for Lua Nova is $Lua Nova Podcast. My TikTok username is Lua Nova Podcast. My Twitter, yes, I have a Twitter and I only call it Twitter, and I don't run that Twitter, by the way, is Lua Nova Podcast. Shout out to my team. They're who runs that podcast. They're who runs my Twitter account. They broke me down, and not in a negative way. And we're like, look, girl, you gotta put your brand out there. We know that you don't agree. We know you despise Elon Musk, but you also still have to work, unfortunately, with companies and brands that you don't love, considering that your ebook is on the Amazon website. And that is a company I definitely do not endorse. And I want you all to understand this. When you have a brand, you have to you never have to put your morals aside. You never have to sell out. In this day and age where AI, bot farms, and people like Drake and Taylor Swift are purchasing their streams, in this day and age, be the opposite. I'm not saying don't ever use these platforms, because obviously I do. My ebooks are on Amazon. My Twitter account is run. I have a Twitter account that is strictly for the podcast, and that's just for new people to find the podcast and my music. I'm never going to tell you that you're wrong for using these platforms. I'm not. Do I prefer Blue Sky? I don't use Blue Sky anymore. After Hoshi passed away, I just didn't have the energy to do that type of social media. TikTok even, I don't really post. I post on my stories, but it's more because over there I had already built a system before Lua Nova even existed. So I get it. But I'm also not going to tell you not to use these platforms, because you do still have to put your brand out there. And the more that people like us who are not paying for streams, who are not paying to be heard, we're not paying bots, we're not doing any of that. The more that we keep speaking out, the more that gets pushed to the side, because all of us don't want to listen to AI clips. Have you guys seen these AI podcast clips? Yikes. Gross. Gross. But, from that to other forms of bots, etc., that are being pushed, we need to be the opposite. All right. We've got to be the voice for the voiceless. All right. That's what I'm encouraging everybody to do. And if you want more content, such as the tier that I'm about to go over, then you can go over to patreon.com/the Lua Nova podcast, and you can become a Patreon member there. You can also download the Patreon app and look up the Lua Nova podcast. And I do have to say this part, copyright 2025 Lua Nova, because yes, I did purchase the Lua Nova name that belongs to me. And I do want to talk to you a little bit about Patreon. So Patreon members, I know that you love this, you're enjoying this. Patreon members get to ask me personal questions about their life, such as, hey, when am I getting a new boyfriend? When am I getting a new job? Do you see this for me? And I do strictly tarot episodes based on their questions. I pull tarot cards based on that. Also, we talk about what's going on in pop culture using tarot. But because I always, and I do mean always, force this idea, because it needs to be forced, the idea of consent. That consent needs to be there when it comes to spirituality. New tarot readers, new witches, understand that you are tapping into other people's energy, that you are tapping into energy, period. Understand how big of a deal that is before you just start reading people's tarot cards. So when it comes to celebrities, politicians, etc., they cannot give me their consent. So I talk about what's going on around them, not them in particular, because I don't do any spiritual work without consent, right? My tarot clients, when I used to take personal clients, knew that they had to fill out a whole form before I even considered taking any sort of tarot readings. But because I wanted tarot to be more accessible to all of my listeners and all of my clients, that tier is $5 a month. That's right. For $5 a month, you get somewhat of a personal tarot reading from me. All right. So again, that is on patreon.com/the Lua Nova podcast. Okay. We have covered all of, from now on, that will be in the front of the show. So that's kind of the, what are we going to call that, new moons? Are we going to call that the textbook part? What, guys, give me a name for it. I'm going to ask all of my listeners, give me a name for the section that I just went over. I always just call it my show notes, but that's pretty boring. So what should that part of the show be called? Because that's what we're going to be going over at the beginning of every single episode of Lua Nova from now on. One more announcement. And no, we're not going to call it Lua Nova announcements because that's boring. One more announcement for you all. I heard feedback mainly from my team on this one, since many of you haven't had the chance to give feedback on this. When it comes to the collective readings, if you haven't already noticed this, because maybe you haven't listened to that episode yet, I am now doing collective readings for all 12 zodiac signs, okay? But I understand how long that makes the episode. A lot of you love it, but you're like, hey, because this is an hour or something long episode, it's I only care about hearing about, Leo and Virgo. I don't care about the other zodiacs. What I'm going to be doing is splitting that. So the first 6 zodiac signs get covered in one episode, and then the next 6 get covered in the next episode. So during the weeks of collective readings, it's going to go like this. Monday will be the first 6. Tuesday will be the next 6. Okay. So now Lua Nova runs 2 days every other week. Okay. Now they'll be recorded at the same time because I would prefer to do it that way. But I hear you. I like feedback. My team is the one who gave me this feedback of why not break it up. And either way, I do want to stress this before we jump into today's episode. My team and I do not do timestamps. Okay. The transcriptions that you see on my podcast are not done by me or my team. We do not participate in any of that. Therefore, when you'll notice most of the transcriptions are wrong. They get, for instance, the words that I say in Brazilian Portuguese completely wrong. They oftentimes will put French, and I'm like, where did you get that from? I said bom, B-O-M, dia, D-I-A. That means good morning. That my podcast comes out in the morning. So guys, why are you saying bonjour? I don't speak French. No shade to my French listeners. I don't speak French. So why are you chopping up my words and putting this? At the end of the show, when I say obrigada, that means thank you in Brazilian Portuguese. Sometimes I say valeu, which also means thank you. So where are you guys getting, those of you, whoever's transcribing my podcast, where are you getting some of this from? I'm assuming that it's automated, and that's why it's oftentimes incorrect. But let's hop into today's episode. Let me see if there's anything I want to cover before we get into it. Yes, you know what? I'm going to check my phone and see if we have any text messages that Spirit wanted to leave for us. One moment. Oh, we got a text from Spirit. And this week's text from Spirit says, shuffle. Let's see. 3535. Cultivate gratitude. Cultivate gratitude daily, and your future will be filled with even more blessings. All right, new moons. Again, that angel number is 3535. So that's your angel number for this week. So in part 1 of us discussing self-concept, I went over what self-concept was and kind of some different areas of how self-concept is applied in our everyday life. So go back to part 1 if you want to hear that part of it first, because I'm not going to be going over it again in this episode. So starting off with step 1. So if this is where you're taking notes, I would start by writing step 1. Step 1 is, for the next 3 days, I want you to observe your automatic thoughts that arise during any standard activity, okay? I want you to note the specific, I'm always stumbling over my words the second I hit record. The specific vocabulary that you use anytime that you make a mistake, like I just did, or when a compliment is received, okay? So if somebody's giving you a compliment, how do you internally receive that? What are you internally thinking? Okay. And if you make a mistake, what is your internal thoughts? To give you an example, since I just made a mistake by completely fumbling the word specific, internally I was thinking, why does that happen every time I hit record? But that's it. I wasn't thinking anything negative about my process. If anything, the only feedback I would say is, in my head, I'm thinking, maybe your brain is just going too fast. The next, and again, this is something I want you to observe for 3 days, is your internal monologue. We all have one. What is your internal monologue saying? The next thing that I want you to identify is these rules that you have created in your head that govern your behavior. All right. These are oftentimes going to appear as your own internal laws, your own universal laws. Okay. And it might be everything from believing that appreciation must be earned through you constantly giving output, or that success is reserved for a specific type of person. All right. So that's just a negative version of it. For those of you who have a healthy self-concept, you don't have those issues. Your internal monologue, your internal laws that you've given yourself are actually on the higher side. Your goddess mode activated for sure. You're like, of course this would happen for me. I'm amazing. All right. And so sometimes it's the opposite. It's not always a negative, but for those of you who are struggling with self-concept, this is more of what I want you to pay attention to. Okay. And then I want you to isolate that material, everything that you just went over for the last 3 days. I want you to pay attention to those rules that you have set for yourself. Are they adopted from maybe past relationships, possibly how you were raised, even past jobs that you had? Where did they come from? I want you to identify that, and I do want you to write that down in your notes as part of your own research on yourself, okay? Because these learned patterns, they create this space that basically tells you, I can choose a completely different standard in the future, okay? All right, so that's step 1. In step 2, we're going to be re-scripting. Now, you know I have a whole episode about scripting, but this isn't that type of scripting. We're not going to be scripting a whole new reality using our journal. This is us re-scripting how we speak to ourselves and how we see the world and how we come across. Okay. So step 2 is vital. I would put, if you're using our iPad, pull out that pen and you know what I mean? The Apple, is it called the Apple Pencil? I don't know. I use the non-Apple version of it. Mine's pink, but it's time to highlight. It's time to get into those apps that you use to make notes and really highlight that. It's time to pull out that notebook, pull out your markers, pull out your highlighters, and emphasize that step 2 is extremely important. Okay. Pink highlighters up. So what you're going to be doing in step 2 is the following. I want you to start writing down new identities I want you to draft specific declarations that reflect a new and ideal self-concept. I want you to frame these statements about yourself in the present tense only, focusing entirely on possession and capability, such as when somebody gives you a compliment, instead of internally taking it as a negative or analyzing it or dissecting it, what I want you to do is frame it in this capability of course I did a great job. I always do a great job. I'm going to continue to do a great job. You know what I mean? That's just to give you a very quick example. And then I want you, the next step is to be specific. Anything generic, it lacks any sort of an impact on you, on any of us. Instead of broad declarations about your confidence, I want you to be precise. An example would be establish this clarity and certainty accompanying every single decision that you make. So what do you mean by that, Josie? What do you mean generic statements lack impact? What do you mean instead of broad declarations of confidence to use precise language? Meaning that I don't care how tiny of a task that it is. I want you to pay attention to how well you do at it. I don't care if you're like, all I did was go to, give me a restaurant that everybody likes to go to, even if it's not one that I enjoy. Chipotle. And I just nailed how I wanted my bowl and it came out perfect. That's all I did. But instead of saying that's all I did, say, you know what? I nourished myself. I got up. I went outside. I drove my car today. I was safe. I made it back safely. I was kind to people. Even if they weren't kind to me, I was kind to them. I was courteous. I am taking care of myself. I'm showing up for myself. Do you see the difference? This is what I mean by being specific. And so even if you have to, you see how that tiny little thing that didn't seem significant is now very significant? This is what I want you to do. That's what I mean by write that down. Pay attention to that specifically. All right. And then we're going to normalize this. We're going to start reviewing these statements immediately every time you wake up and right before you go to sleep. And during these states of mind, this is when you're the most receptive to new data. So this is when you're going to go back over these notes. And when you go over these notes, and this is going to be something that I expect for you to do for at least a month. Most people will say it needs to take 90 days. No. The reason why I'm saying just a month is that little by little, you're not going to need to go over these notes. You're not going to need to go over it for more than a month. But it is something that I want you to do consistently for a month. The first 3 days is when we're just observing ourselves. But after that, a whole month. All right? Because we're going to normalize a new self-concept. And, new moons, before we get to phase 3 and 4, I think we need a dance break. One moment.
Mueve la colita, new moons! This is the Sacral Chakra segment, a brief musical interlude designed to heal your nervous system. The following track is an original work written, produced, composed, and partially performed by Josie the Mustang. All rights reserved. Let's dance!
Summer goddess mode activated. I'm alive, so magnetic. I'm smelling like coconut and sunshine. I'm ready for love that's all mine. My heart chakra is open. The self-love spell is in motion. We're holding hands and looking out at the ocean. He's sincere with his words, kind and that gorgeous. Face of his is the truth. The way this man showed up and made me the love of his life was so smooth. My aura is sparkling and golden. When it comes to love, I'm always chosen. The energy we radiate is priceless. Our love is beautiful, our love is timeless. He's the sunset, I'm the moon. We're sipping mimosas and falling in love in June. He's the sunset, I'm the moon. We're sipping mimosas and falling in love in June. I love waking up in his strong embrace. I never question his love, that's never the case. The palm trees are the setting. I can connection is a guarantee. The first time we met, I knew he was the one for me. My aura is sparkling and golden. When it comes to love, I'm always chosen. The energy we radiate is priceless. Our love is beautiful, our love is timeless. Here's the sunset. I'm the moon. We're sipping mimosas and falling in love in June. Love in June. Here's the sunset. I'm the moon. We're sipping mimosas and falling in love in June. Love in June. Here's the sunset. I'm the moon. I'm the moon. Here's the sunset. I'm the moon. We're sipping mimosas and falling in love in June. Love in June. And so it is.
And the song that you just heard is called Falling in Love in June, and it is on my summer EP called Summer Solstice. You can listen to my EP, Summer Solstice, on Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, YouTube Music, all of the major music platforms, okay? Thank you for every single one of you that streams my music, that loves my music, and shares it with people. You get positive feedback about it. Thank you so much for making my music, my podcast, everything that I create for you as a big part of your life. Summer Solstice is honestly my favorite of all of the music that I've ever written. Those 4 songs, they were fun to write and they were easy to write. And I was actually, at the time, newly grieving the loss of my aunt. And I was focusing on what I wanted to feel like and what I wanted you to feel like. Basically, it wasn't just my own self-concept I was thinking about. I was thinking about yours too. So I would say that Summer Solstice has an extremely important part of my heart, okay? And getting back into self-concept, part 3, okay? So step 3 is what I meant to say. Keep in mind, your mind believes evidence. Any new assumptions have to be validated through physical action to become these permanent parts of your self-concept, okay? So I want you first to adopt the filter of your ideal highest self. When you're faced with a choice, ask what the highest version of you, who already possesses this highly elevated self-concept, would do. Act strictly according to that version of you, because that version of you exists. The fact that you can even think it means that it already exists. And then I want you to do the following. After you do that, modify your body language. All right? The physical body, it signals to our brain about our status and our security. Maintain an open posture. Speak with deliberate pacing and put your phone down. You know what I notice? And why I tend to command rooms, I always do. What I mean tend to, is that I don't go anywhere and walk in with my phone right in my hand. Most of the time, 10 times out of 10, I don't know where my phone is. It could be literally in my purse, and I'm still like, I don't know, it's somewhere in there. I couldn't care less about that phone. In fact, my phone's right here, but if I was out in public, I wouldn't even, I can't imagine walking into anywhere with my phone. When I used to physically work into like corporate offices, I never walked in with a phone. What am I walking in with a phone for? Unless in that very second I was getting a phone call or a text, my phone wasn't even near me. It was somewhere floating around the bottom of my purse. So that immediately signals that I'm confident in anywhere that I'm walking into, even if I'm not sure of the environment, even if I'm not sure of the people that I'm about to meet. I'm going to put it this way, guys. Even when I walked into the ER and I had no idea how serious my condition was, I didn't have my phone in my hand. I literally had to be like, oh, one moment, I'm sorry. I'm not used to walking in with my phone in my hand. Because that immediately signals confidence, assurance, even when you don't feel sure of yourself at all. Put your phone down. You were not born with that phone in your hand. Put your phone down. I'm especially talking to you, Gen Z. Put your phone down. I don't know if Gen Alpha is old enough to listen to my show, but if you are, put your phone down. Put your phone down. Okay? Emphasize that. Put that in the notes. All right. The reason why this is important is not only does it signal to other people that you have a high self-concept and high self-worth, it also signals this to you. It becomes proof of your own self-confidence, even if you don't feel it. Now, what you will notice more and more and more as you begin to put your phone down, as you begin to make eye contact with people, as you begin to speak up for yourself, is that it will become a permanent part of your life. Even if, like myself, you are sitting behind a microphone and nobody actually physically sees you, I would also recommend recording your voice. I don't like the sound of my voice, guys. I don't. Thank God for vocal cloning, because if it was just my natural singing voice, which parts of it are in almost 99% of my music, you will hear my actual voice in parts of it. But if it weren't for vocal cloning, I would never make music. I'm glad that exists, because I would never do it. I don't like the sound of my voice. When I'm editing my show, it's literally just me making sure that what I want is there. Once my team gets it, I don't care. I don't want to hear it anymore. But it has helped me to also be very confident in my voice and what it is that I have to say, because what you have to say is important. What you have to say is relevant, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. The more you're comfortable speaking, the more that, and I'm not telling you that you have to take speech and debate like I did in high school. Although, yes, it did help me somewhat, but I'm a grown woman now, so I can't just rely on, well, this is what I did in high school. You have to keep at it. Always. So I don't care if it's voice memos in your phone, voice memos to a friend, lover, etc. Did I just say lover? Who says lover? I want you to work on your speaking as well. All right. When you go to Chipotle, like I just mentioned, I'm not sponsored, by the way, look at them in the eye. Oftentimes people say, man, they really weren't that friendly. Do you know how I have come across, this happened recently, where the worker, she seemed stressed. And it's because the people in front of me barely made eye contact, just kind of talked to her like she was a robot. I, on the other hand, even when she looked stressed, looked her right in the eye and said, hi, how are you? How many seconds did that just take? And she literally, before she could get to the next thing she was about to say, looked caught off guard, which made me sad, because what do you mean? You're caught off guard that somebody was showing you some kindness. That should be the norm. That should be the norm. And I will say this about having a boomer parent. Thank you for teaching. Look, I don't agree with a lot of things about boomers, but that's one thing they got right. Now, do they still behave this way? Most of them do not, but my mom does. So thank you, mother, for teaching me manners. But it's important because it also helps your self-concept. And then the last part of step 3, notice every single of the steps have their own little steps on the inside. Okay, own little areas. So this is like an outline. How many of us, I'm speaking to millennials, Gen X, and probably, I don't know if boomers did this, had to physically write outlines. Now, Gen X, did you guys have to do this? But us millennials did. We had to write a physical outline with paper and no AI and I remember this, and it has helped me so much. I think it's why I'm so good at writing. But This is why I just wanted to mention that this is how I structured these notes, is like an outline that I did in school, but I was always good at that anyway. All right. Sidebar. As we're talking about millennials, do you guys know that millennials are under the age of 50? Because some of the things that you all assume are so incorrect. For instance, millennial gray. Millennials didn't come up with that. No shade Gen X, but that's a Gen X thing. What millennial is old enough to have purchased any of these buildings and houses that you all claim are in millennial gray? No, that would be Gen X gray. No shade but shade. Okay, so moving on to, let me see if I went over everything. Yes, the last part of step 3, which is setting boundaries. I want you to get comfortable saying no. You know, everybody's like, no, you got to say yes. You got to say yes. No. You got to say no, too. No was actually my first word, allegedly. Learning to say no when you don't want to say yes. sets boundaries immediately. No is a complete sentence. No is a complete sentence. Got it? Okay. So getting back to setting those boundaries. I only want you to say yes to opportunities and different dynamics that actually match this new self-concept, this new self-standard that you have created for yourself. Okay. I want you to say no to environments that make you feel undervalued. Because what you are teaching your brain is that your time and your energy are valuable because they are. And so it is. Because they are. That's it. No further explanation needed. And when somebody tries to force an explanation on you, I want you to turn it back around on them and say, why does it matter? Why do you ask? What do you mean? Turn it around on them. Because oftentimes it's their insecurities that are being loud. When somebody's trying to, for instance, let's say that you were invited to a birthday dinner and you really don't want to go because you know that there's going to be people there that you've seen firsthand. They're very low vibrational, etc. And you say no. And then somebody says, why? Say, why do you ask? Why does it matter? I said no. I don't need to give you an explanation. I don't even know why you keep inviting me around people that I don't want to be around. That's a little odd to me that you hang out with them. I mean, you've seen what they're like, but you want to keep hanging out with them, you go for it. I don't want to be around low vibrational people. That's my explanation. That's the end of it. Because the more confident that you come across like that, the more people know to back down. The more people know, you know what? This is not the one. And this is what I'm wanting you to be more comfortable with. Okay. So we're going to move into step 4. This is the last part. Internal validation. First of all, your internal validation is the only validation needed. You don't need my validation. You don't need your uncle's validation. You don't need your teacher from 3rd grade's validation. You need your validation first. That doesn't mean that your loved ones don't matter. Of course they matter. And oftentimes we want their validation, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Those of you who have a support team, first of all, I love that for you. I love that. I want you to be grateful for that support team. Be grateful for the people who do validate you and do lift you up, etc. But your validation has to come first. Always. No matter what. Because I'm going to say this as somebody with a podcast. Do you know how many podcasts there are? I don't even know. And I'm not about to look it up. My voice goes into a void. I don't know who listens to my show. And I know that there are massive podcasts that are pushed by the industry. And same thing with my music. There's massive artists that are independent just like me that are pushed way more than I would ever be. Do I care? I could not care less because I know that my products are amazing, outstanding, exceptional, desirable. I could go on and on and on. But my validation matters first. Oh, you don't like my book that I wrote? I mean, cool. I'm still going to keep writing. Oh, you really can't stand that song that I wrote called Lock In? Okay, and I love it. I listen to it when I drive. I don't drive a lot, but when I do, I listen to it all the time. What do you mean? Oh, you don't really understand the concept behind falling in love in June? Okay, well, it's for the people who do get it. That's what I mean, is that the validation of strangers is nice, but it will never top mine. And it would never top your own. Do you get what I mean? So I want you to start documenting. This is going to be a lot of notes that you guys are going to be writing. Your daily successes, and I don't care how small they seem to you. I want you to keep a written record of the execution. You know how I just went over, you went to Chipotle, you ordered a bowl, you were kind to people, you made it home safely, you drove safely. No one got a negative anything from you unless they were, their own securities were leaping out. But that's what I mean. You know how many successes I just named? Several. This is what I mean. It doesn't matter if it was on a tiny scale or that particular day you got amazing feedback from your supervisor. Write it down because this is beginning to shape this new self-concept, okay? When you're keeping a written record of it, now you're able to list these instances where actions align perfectly with your new self-identity. And this is building this undeniable catalog of evidence. And that's what your brain wants. Evidence. All right? That's how we manifest. We want the evidence. This is why oftentimes people struggle to manifest money, but they can manifest, let's say, romance. Because at some point, someone's going to be attracted to you, right? That's not even something that most of you are concerned about. And so your brain is like, well, that can happen because it has happened. But when it comes to, let's say, a large sum of money, your brain is like, how? My brain doesn't understand this. And this is why we work on that self-concept. Because the more that you give yourself that internal validation and internal proof, the easier it is to manifest everything else. Okay? This leads to the next step, self-approval. All right? Give yourself permission to feel successful and complete before receiving feedback from the outside world. All right. This breaks this habit of looking to the outside environment for permission to feel secure within yourself. Okay. And then the last part, I want you to start to, I want you to interpret events favorably. When it comes to the outside world, circumstances are going to vary, right? I want you to choose the explanation that actually supports this new identity, though. For instance, assume that if there's a delay or changes of any kind, that it's simply still working in your favor, because this maintains your internal equilibrium. And what I mean by that is, let's say that you're going to be late to work. Assume that the universe had something in mind for you to go right that day. The universe was putting things in motion for you that, well, maybe made you 5 to 10 minutes late. It needed to happen. Okay? Assume that that rainy day that came about out of nowhere was still working in your favor. Because it reminded you, hey, you remember those, brand new Tory Burches? You needed another pair. So the universe just wanted this to happen so that you could get another pair. You'll get the first ones clean and now you have 2 pairs. You know what I mean? So you have to think of it always in this lucky girl syndrome. It always works out for me way. All right. All right, new moons. I have gone over everything. Well, I've gone over 4 steps for you regarding your brand new self-concept. So what I want you to do is when you go to luanovapodcast.net and you hit that little icon button to email my team, I want you to give me feedback on how your new self-concept is working. Remember, this is something I want you to be writing down and focusing on for the next 30 days. So I don't care if you're listening to this in September, if you're listening to this next year, 30 days from that day is where I want you to start. All right. To spend the first 3 days just observing your current self-concept, because that observation is how we're going to move into this new self-concept. All right, new moons. So next week is your collective reading. Remember that I will be doing the first 6 zodiac, and I do it in this order: earth, air, fire, water. So I believe that it'll be earth and air, that you will get the first part. Fire, water, you get the last part. So that will be Monday will be earth and air. Tuesday, fire and water. All right, new moons. Boop, boop, boop. I got the new moons for aligning with the frequency of the Lua Nova podcast. Remember, go to luanovapodcast.net to send in your questions, your feedback. If you're a Patreon member and you want me to answer your questions via tarot, that's also where you're going to send in those questions to. Make sure that you send in a screenshot so that my team can prove that you are in fact a Patreon member, and we can get those questions answered for you. Follow me on TikTok at Lua Nova Podcast. You can also follow the official Twitter account for Lua Nova by going to Lua Nova Podcast on Twitter. And yes, I'm going to continue to call it Twitter. Please don't try to correct me. I can't stand Elon, Trump, any of these people, so I will say whatever I want. Okay? And with that being said, I will talk to you next week, new moons. Ciao, ciao.